The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my tickets!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, TV Party Tonight. I'm your host. Don't believe the hype. I am the actual host of these here proceedings. And tonight, thank you. These are for you, McNulty.
Hey, look, I can point and express myself at the same time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you notice that's what I did?
Now, Robert, the show's just started. You don't have to show off your IQ that early.
Tonight, our favorite show is Ash vs. Evil Dead, brought to you by the good people at Renaissance Pictures and Starz Originals. Ash vs. Evil Dead is an American horror television series developed by Sam Raimi, who likes buckets of blood, Ivan Raimi, and Tom Spezialy for Starz. This series is set in the Evil Dead universe created by Raimi, with Bruce Campbell reprising his role as Ash Williams for the film series. Ray Santiago, Dana DeLorenzo, and Lucy Lawless also star. It premiered, those many years ago, on October 31st, 2015. And joining me tonight, of course, are, Jesse's not here. He was supposed to be here because he does all of our old television shows with me. However, intended guest, long-awaited special guest, really, the third part of the wise men of the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, good to his mother, the witch doctor, ooh-ee, ooh-ah-ah, ching-chang, walla-walla, bing-bang, goddamn it, it's Robert Winfree and his boomstick. How do you do, sir?
If I'd known you were going to introduce me that way, I would have brought my
Boomstick?
I have a few things that, yes.
Okay, which would have
But
gotten
that
us
gets us
immediately
in
thrown
trouble
off
on
of YouTube.
Immediately demonetized.
However, we would have been selected then by the Trump campaign, and that's a whole other podcast. Speaking of the Trump campaign,
Look, man, I'd read ad copy. Just saying.
Speaking of reading ad copy for Republicans, Alexis Hayne is here. How do you do, madam?
How many times do you want me to flip you off? And what evening,
As
man?
many as it takes, baby.
Yeah, this is us watching Friday the 13th Part 3 the other night. Da 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 da. Woo! It's 3D.
And speaking of flipping off girls from Frikey Pictures, ladies and gentlemen, it's Dorian Price. How do you do, sir?
Groovy.
Perfect. All right, Robert. I know you have been waiting all year since I told you we were doing this, insisted we were doing this, reminded you we were doing this, and then had to remind you again when you insisted we weren't, because nobody loves me. Nobody. Mammy. So
Okay,
explain.
you are horribly projecting that one onto me.
Not even a little bit. So, Robert, why are we talking Ash versus Evil Dead? Please, pull out your mandolin and play us a song, Bard.
Lady, play your mandolin. Da, da, da,
I think
da, da,
one of
da,
my
da.
brothers has a mandolin downstairs, actually. I'd have to double check.
Okay, get your boomstick, the mandolin.
I've declared no more props on this show. Go.
Props.
Sorry, guys.
Well-
Zach's not around.
So, because Mark decided, I don't know why Mark latched onto this one as the thing he's going to decide to pay off. But you see, many years ago, back in around late 18, early 19, Mark
Before I died the second time.
Yeah. Mark was like, hey, I need ideas for Halloween season. and we need we've got the movies lined up, but throw something on a Thursday evening that we can talk about for TV. And I feel like he said he owed me one at this point for something. I'm not sure why, but he just said, look, pick something. So I looked through my Rolodex of material and went, well, it's not too long ago that Ash vs. Evil Dead was canceled, and you and Sean have done the Evil Dead trilogy as A Long Road to Ruin. That was only about 3 years ago at that point. So why not? We'll throw that on there. It's a decent enough time. And Mark went, okay. And then Life. Just stuff interfered, and Mark said, I will make this up to you, I promise. And I went, whatever.
In my defense, whether you choose to admit it or not, in your brain sometimes, and on the one hand, you and Pat, autistic elephant brain, on the other hand, conveniently forget things that don't work in your favor. You were really sad that I cut this.
I don't recall that. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Of course you don't, Dad. So
look, let the record state that he wants this written on the record for the jury.
Yeah,
I have no recollection of that, Senator.
Indeed, very useful phrase.
Yes.
So Mark said, look, life, cancer, moving, whatever it was something, and I just went, okay, I understand. And we moved on. And then he said, okay, how about, we do it in January instead of October. We'll just push it back a few months. No big deal. And I went, sure. And then we got closer to that, and he went, boy, this ain't happening for any number of reasons.
That sounds like me.
And so he said, okay, how about October again? So we'll push it back another 10 months. And I went, sure. And then the movie schedule got released. And it just, no space to be had between a lot of things.
Yeah, this is quite the epic tale, Dorian.
Yeah, what's the phrase? Man schedules, God laughs.
Yes.
That became the Radulich Broadcasting Network phrase from 2019 on.
Yeah, pretty much. And then the world fell apart. And at this, look, by the time we got out of 2020 and into 2021, we were just like, okay, so what are we doing here? We're scrambling to find stuff. What do the shows even look like? We got a bunch of stuff not apart, but had to be wildly restructured because Jesse's schedule got radically changed.
Yeah, we lost Jesse for a while there, and I was covering other shows that I don't really host. It was the whole thing.
Yeah. So it all shakes out now in 2024 when, in addition to Channing Tatum as Gambit being paid off, Mark's finally said, look, I'm only bringing that up because we're paying off these long-running gags that we've had now. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I fully expect Brock Lesnar to win another title, and
I hope it's the WWE title and the UFC title in the same night. To finish this up really quickly so we can actually talk about the show, as I said to Dorian and Alexis tonight, this is really an extension of what I was already doing with Jesse, which started with the David Simon stuff, The Wire, The Corner, The Deuce, etc., and then went into Sons of Anarchy when Ronnie was like, let's put the band back together. And I was like, okay, well, if I can bring Ronnie in to do a show that he's passionate about, I can bring Robert in to do a show I think he's passionate about, or at the very least, pay, as he put it, pay off a long-running debt. So that's why we're here. Yes, Sean and I did do the Evil Dead trilogy way back in the old-timey times of Long Road to Ruin. Generally favorable reviews. I think the first of the Evil Dead movies I ever saw actually was Army of the Dead. I started there.
First of all, Army of Darkness. Second of all, I'm still unbelievably bitter that they didn't let Sam Raimi use the appropriate title for that movie.
So when we did the trilogy, I had actually never seen Evil Dead or Evil Dead Part 2. I have thought to go back in the archive, check out the podcast. I do remember thinking Evil Dead 2 was a giant waste of time, seeing as we just did Evil Dead. It was basically the same as Evil Dead, as I recall. Alexis,
well, the first bit, but there's a whole production reason for that, and
I remember talking about it. And I know Sean had notes of gore.
Go back to the archive if you want to hear us talk about
so,
that.
Alexis,
you can also find the wonderful title card for that series done by Benjamin J. Colon.
That's actually hanging on. That was
among his best.
Before I moved, that was hanging on my wall. It was one of 4 I got for one of the few gifts I ever got from Melissa that I actually liked. 4th time. Alexis, you wormed your way onto this podcast. Clearly, you're a huge fan. Tell me about your love of the Evil Dead franchise.
Oh, are you kidding me? Bruce Campbell's one of my top 5 male celebrity crushes. I have been crazy about him for as long as I can remember. I love his movies. I think he's hilarious. I love the Evil Dead franchise. Admittedly, I actually prefer Evil Dead 2 over Evil Dead. And like you, I actually saw Army of Darkness before I saw Evil Dead 2. I think a lot of people did, actually. And I think that's partially because I think Army of Darkness had a wider marketing campaign.
It is also much more accessible for a wider audience.
Exactly. Evil Dead 2 was still more of a independent film. Army of Darkness, oh my God. I remember seeing a clip about Army of Darkness on Entertainment Tonight when I was a kid. You know, showing my age here, showing those gray hairs.
Keep going.
So, but yeah, I absolutely love it. I watch Evil Dead 2 all the time, watch Army of Darkness all the time. I got both. So when Ash versus Evil Dead was announced, I was like, hell yeah. You know.
How'd that go again?
What?
How'd that go again?
Not saying it again for your enjoyment.
Hell yeah!
Hell yeah!
Still mad that when Bruce Campbell went to
boss, I don't give a shit.
You're making me regret giving you your birthday present early, Dorian.
Oh my God, you still regret blah blah yakety schmackety go.
Still, I was just about to say, still upset that when Bruce Campbell came to Colorado Springs, I believe it was last year, they actually set up an extra privacy curtain. You couldn't see him unless you specifically paid, and then they would walk you through like a little maze of curtains to see him. So I actually had a perfect view of Celebrity Row with my booth, and it's like, where is he? Where is he? And it's like, no, I didn't get to see him. I was like, you know. But yeah, loved Ash vs. Evil Dead. Although admittedly, I only saw seasons 1 and 2. I never actually got to see season 3. I don't remember why I stopped watching. Life, I guess.
It happens.
A lot of people stopped watching.
It took
a lot of people started bootlegging it.
This
show is that's one of the reasons this show got canceled.
It took me 2 tries to finish Rescue Me. I started it, life happened, and I think during the ammonia, which led to cancer, I was like, oh, I never finished Rescue Me. What happened? Oh my God, this is terrible. So I get that. It happens. Dorian, before I get interrupted again, you also just Kool-Aid man into this podcast.
Oh yeah,
ruining my special time. So why are you here, sir?
Well, okay, I was really excited about this show. So first time I see any of the Evil Dead is 13 years ago. I'm 14 years old. I lied to the crew that I'm working for, saying that I'm 18 because they're gonna have this big party and I don't want to go home to Mr. and Mrs. Churchy McGee. So I'm like, yeah, I'm totally 18 because apparently I age backwards. At the time, I actually kind of did look like I was 18. But anyways, so they start getting drunk, and they decide to skip the first Evil Dead and put on Evil Dead 2. And I immediately fell in love with like how goofy this was, because I was like, what the fuck is this? And they're like, you don't know about Evil Dead? And again, one of the other people who at the time was, I think, like 18 was like, dude, you got to remember, he is young. You know, this one's done no wrong, and he needs a doctor's care. But so I ended up watching it and really loving it, and I was loaned the DVD of the first movie and Army of Darkness, which I still have those 2 copies. I never got the chance to give them back, sadly. So when this was announced, I watched this religiously. I was that person who, like, I know a lot of people who are fans of Grey's Anatomy would do that every time it was.
Well, that wasn't pointed at anyone in particular.
No, shush your mouth. But like, you would come home and you would watch, you know, the episodes. So I have seen all 3 seasons religiously. I might have been the only person there while season 3 was still going, not bootlegging it, going, I'm with you all the way.
All right. I want to get into the show, but I want to give Robert an opportunity to not just talk about the long and storied history of how we do our schedule, but
we both know you would love to share your spreadsheet with the world, Mark. It is one of your favorite things.
I'd love to unfurl my spreadsheet and give it to everybody, but we don't have that kind of time. You set me up for that. That was your fault.
I said nothing.
So anyway, sure you didn't. And so I'm going to say this. You're going to disagree because you're Robert and that's what you do, but it's the truth. You don't get excited about much, but when you do, it brings me joy. So you seemingly got really excited about this show when we first talked about doing it, which is why I doubled down and made sure it happened when I had the opportunity. What's special about the show to you, or this franchise in general?
Well, the franchise is just a lot of fun. You know, the line between horror and comedy is a very weird one, and it's a lot closer. They're a lot closer to themselves than they like to admit. It's
just watch
debatable.
Just watch Gremlins, or especially Gremlins 2.
It's debatable which side of that aisle is more comfortable with the fact that they're so closely related. Some people, it's the horror people that just refuse to acknowledge how close they are to comedy half the time, and there's some comedians who just cannot get around the notion that no, this could be horrifying. So please, you know, so there's a lot of fun to be had there. You know, Bruce Campbell is a wonderful leading man for this kind of stuff. Sam Raimi is such a personality-filled filmmaker. Like all of his stuff is very much his stuff. You know, it's his stuff. So there was a lot of that. As for why I may have gotten excited when this was originally sort of like on the schedule, I couldn't tell you what was pinging in my head emotionally at that time. My recollection of it is that I was like, again, you had asked, you know, bring me something, and I went, I think it was because it was the first thing that came to my mind was, yeah, sure, this. So
I gotta say, getting into this series, so here's what this is about, and then we can actually open up and talk about it. So this is 30 years later, and Ash is working in that world's equivalent of a Walmart, and the Evil Dead are back, and he's got the Necronomicon, and they are on the run. He's got a little pal with him from this S-Mart called Pedro, and Pedro likes a pretty girl, and so the three of them.
For the love of.
What you want to do it? Be my guest, but I don't want to be here 8
I
hours.
could at least get the characters' names right.
The fuck? Which character did I miss?
It's Pablo.
Whatever, Pablo.
You can't call him Pedro.
So Steve,
they actually did that joke in the final episode. I'm here, Pedro. Wait, Pablo. Must have really hit my head. I am like 90% convinced that was just Bruce Campbell screwing up the line and trying to cover his ass.
There's so much about me and Bruce Campbell that is similar. It's scary.
Dude, this version of Ash, rewatching season 1 for this, this version of Ash is your spirit animal.
You beat me to it. I was going to say that, but that was totally in my head. I was like, I'm watching this going, oh God, that's me.
Yes.
It really is.
So anywho, getting through this, they go on the run. There's cops chasing them. One of the cops eventually joins their gang shortly before being killed. Lucy Lawless, who is, what is Lucy Lawless in all actuality, Robert?
She's one of the, this gets revealed a little bit more later on. Because time travel starts playing a role in the season 2 and 3, and that's always fun. She's one of the Dark Ones, the original, like, pseudo-immortal group of people who wrote the Necronomicon.
So she's chasing them because she also wants the book, but she wants the book to be able to control evil, etc., etc. This is, gosh, how many episodes is this?
10.
10 episodes, and basically the sum total of it is they're trying to they want to bring the book eventually back to the cabin where the movie takes place so they can bury it, and we'll never speak of the shortcut again. A lot of people get turned into Evil Dead along the way. There's a lot of fucking with people's heads. There's a lot of dream sequences. There's a lot of drug use, which is always fun. A lot of buckets of blood, gore everywhere. That's the show, and a lot of sexual innuendos, which is my favorite part of this.
Yeah, of course.
So
it's a Sam Raimi R-rated horror franchise. If the characters are not covered in gallons of blood, someone is not doing their job.
Oh, you only wish it was blood by the time we get later into this.
The only difference is this time is Bruce Campbell got to turn to the other two people and go, the man's going to be fucking with you now.
So the first third of this, they're trying to figure out, this is where we can start the discussion. The first third of this, they're trying to figure out, like, how to contain this, what to do with it. And eventually they go to Pablo's uncle, which ends tragically, and it's about the only thing in the show where there's a tragic end that actually, to me, had any emotion to it. So we'll start there. I'll start with you, Robert, and then Alexis, and then Dorian. The first third, where they're just trying to figure out what the plan here is. What do we do? How do we handle this? What did you think of the show?
Well, it's got a fairly strong intro. The first episode is an hour long. Well, an hour broadcast, 45 minutes. Everything else is 30 minutes of your life to watch. The evil being released because Ash got stoned with some Hot Topic girl and wanted to read poetry out of it is hilariously on brand for all parties concerned.
I gotta admit, that's a detail that I missed because I couldn't figure out. Like, I'm three or four episodes into it. I'm like, wait, how is any of this happening? So thank you for pointing that out. Also, 100% accurate. That's very much on brand.
But Bruce Campbell effortlessly sliding back into this role just 30 years later and leaning into all of the silliness that goes along with it is pretty darn good. One of the important things about the first episode actually is we get an effective horror sequence out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the scariest thing in the world, but when the two cops go into the farmhouse and the deadite is messing with them, and then the male partner gets turned, and then female cop with the world's most powerful derringer, guns, that's just hilarious. But that whole sequence is still like genuinely pretty solid on the horror front. Again, I'm not going to pretend it's the scariest thing in the world, but there's no humor to be found there necessarily. It's played straight.
Yeah, it's a very strong opening, and none of the rest of the show matches it. Not even.
Well, there's a few other places that do, especially as we continue on, but it's important to establish that while the comedy is maybe the centralized theme of everything that's going on here, this is a series and an IP that does need to be able to lean into genuinely trying to be frightening on occasion and have it not fall flat on its face.
Well, and I feel that's what the first Evil Dead movie did, even though the audiences saw it as comedic, and so Evil Dead 2 becomes more popular. So every now and again, when Sam Raimi comes back to Evil Dead, especially with the show, he leans back into how he wanted the first movie to go, and then pops back to Evil Dead 2 because it's like, okay, this is what everybody loved, but this is what I wanted to do the first time.
What's interesting to me is when we did Evil Dead Rise, like how much that was lacking in any kind of humor. That was a straight horror movie, and it was very much like a mind fuck. And while this one has elements of that, it definitely stresses, and Alexis, feel free to just jump in when you want, but it definitely stresses more comedic elements, and Evil Dead Rise did not.
Very true. It is important to point out that the pilot episode was actually directed by Sam Raimi. It's got his fingerprints all over it. And I think people really underestimate just how good Raimi is as a horror director. Yes, he blends horror and comedy well, but the man knows how to make a scary movie. We talked about this when he directed Multiverse of Madness, that there are scenes that are clearly Raimi is dipping back into his horror element, and those are the prime moments of the movie. I remember us talking about the whole, it's like, but you need a living subject to Deadwalk. Who says they need to be alive? It was like, oh my God, that was Raimi drenched, and we loved it.
Could you imagine if they had just gotten out of Sam Raimi's way, or Edgar Wright for that matter, and just let them make their movie?
Yes.
Dude, we talked about it, man. Sam Raimi drugged that piece of crap movie kicking and screaming into being entertaining, and bless him for it.
But keeping with the show.
No, the first one, there is some really scary moments, and yes, a lot of them are very over the top, very humorous. When the characters start getting completely drenched in blood, we're all laughing, going, okay, this isn't meant to be taken seriously. But I can imagine a lot of people who are not accustomed to the horror genre that much, seeing a handful of these scenes and getting rightfully freaked out.
Right. Let me go over to you, Dorian, kind of keep the conversation going. Like I said, the first third of it, where they're just trying to figure out like what to do, I think I don't hate the show by any stretch of the imagination. I was entertained by it. I do have some difficulties with this show. So I want to go over to you first with this. There's a couple of things that jumped out at me, and they became apparent to me in that first third. they rest heavy on as almost like a framing device, the sort of man out of time element with Bruce Campbell, which starts off very funny. You know, he's very much like an 80s action hero, but an 80s action hero who's clearly on the other side of middle age. So like he's not working as well. And also, and it's that like, oh, grandpa's gonna say something racist kind of a humor, which was funny at first and got grating as the show got on, because it felt like it was a writer's room thing where they thought it was funny, so they just kept doing it, but they don't do anything else with it. They just beat the same drum over and over and over again. Which brings me to, I think, my biggest criticism of the show is they rest a little too much on the, no, I must do it alone. I don't want to put anyone in danger. And, you know, Pablo and the girl are like just so eager, you know, and like almost like a Young Avengers way. Like, come on, we want to deputize these new hot characters, you know, and push them out front. And it's not as bad as some of the stuff Marvel does, but it was very much like, it felt like the wrestling was the writing was wrestling with itself, and it was coming out in how the characters interacted. Where Bruce, you know, Ash very much wants to go it alone, but these two characters want to go with him and they want to be a part of this. And it's like, okay, you're stretching very little material out over way too big of a piece of the show. I've said a lot there, and I waited till you were drinking to make sure you could not talk. So go ahead and tell me what you think of what I'm saying.
I was gonna say, do you want to break those 12 questions down to like maybe 3?
Not even a little bit. Just throw and see what it hits.
Let's do this thing. Well, no, I'm gonna. The main point that you said about, you know, the 80s action hero is not working as well, and now he's become the grandpa. I was going to say something racist, and he wants to go it alone, and that being an issue for you. I was quite the reverse. I thought and truly believe that was a great character choice because of all the horror final victims we have.
Mm-hmm.
That's Nancy from Nightmare. That's, you know, Tommy Jarvis from Friday. That's obviously Laurie Strode from Halloween. Ash Williams, and I will die on this hill, has the most interesting and full character arc from point A to point B, if we count Ash versus the Evil Dead as point B.
I want to interject, but it's like they try to, and I want to hear your point, but it's like the writers are trying so hard to make him dumb, you know, just rock stupid, that I have a hard time believing what the character is doing if you're going to make him also that much of an imbecile.
Well, and I think that comes back to the original movie as well. And that's actually a good segue into my point. In the original movie, he's kind of the dumb kid who just wants to have a sweet, you know, weekend with his girlfriend, you know, give her this necklace, you know, probably have sex. You know, the blonde driving the car, he's our douchebag. Oh my God. You're like from like first 3 minutes, I'm like, oh, this guy's dead. I mean, I already know he's dead. It's not the second movie, but oh, you're toast. So Ash starts out there. He is not the brightest bulb in the bunch, but he's the most resilient. Mm-hmm. And in the second movie, and again, I'm not trying to do a long road to ruin inside a TV party tonight, you know, Radulichception. It's the idea that in the second movie, Ash is losing his mind. Mm-hmm. Realistically, as we all would in that situation. Again, he's laughing with a freaking elk that's also laughing with him. His hand's gone, you know, evil and shit like that. So by the third movie, he's this kind of brash kind of by the end of the second movie, but very much in Army of Darkness. And very quickly, Robert, for the other Evil Dead fans out there, I have to agree with you. I would have loved for the third movie to be called Medieval Dead. That would have worked so much better, but that's an argument for another day and on another show. So again, with all that in mind, with this character arc from dumb kid who just wants to have a nice weekend with his girlfriend. Oh my God, everything's gone to hell. I'm terrified. And again, we actually meet Ash's father in the show, who is this very cocky, you know, Ash Williams style, you know, character. I almost feel that, and I wish, I will agree with you. I wish they maybe put a spotlight on this with a flashback or something like that. That's why there's such a character switch between the middle of Evil Dead 2 going forward. Is he's like, I'm so terrified. I want to be like my dad. Dad was never scared of anything. He just
that would have been nice, because the The show lacks a lot of depth, and that's one of the that would have given it depth.
But by the same token, the audience that is fans of Evil Dead would have recoiled from that because other than the first movie, there isn't a lot of depth throughout the series. You know, it gained its notoriety because it was this crazy balls to the wall, gallons of blood thing. So as much as I agree with the fact that, again, I would have liked a little bit more depth as a writer myself, I have to disagree that the character is ill fit. There is so much of that original Ash in, you know, from the very first movie, from first Evil Dead, in the whole I've got to go it alone. Because by the time he gets to the third movie, he's lost so many people. He knows how this game goes. You know, it's like, no, get away from me because anybody who gets around me and this thing dies. And you both seem like pretty cool kids. You know, it's now moved past the like early middle age, like late 30s, early 40s, you know, kind of thing where he's now in his 50s and he is kind of that grandpa where he's like, listen, you guys seem like great kids. You got a great life ahead of you. Mine's already fucked and like on the final.
Don't follow me. Nothing good goes where I go.
Yeah. It's, you know, so just go. So to me, I have to fight that. I think that was a good character choice and still keeping him dumb enough that we don't turn him into Van Helsing. Because
Robert,
that is a trope in horror that happens way too often. Is we turn that final person, and I'm going to shut up in just a second.
Yes.
We turn that final person into the all-wise Van Helsing. And
Robert, I know that. Thank you. I'm done talking now. This is the phrase. Robert, I know that we have these kind of general conversations, especially the more of us there is, and I have to applaud you. You've done a great job so far of not just throwing in and jumping in and yelling, "Hang on." But I have imagined between what I've said and what Dorian said, you have some things you'd like to respond to. So the floor is yours.
Not really.
Perfect. Moving on.
Can we do a quick shout out to Jay Bones, who has been commenting the entire time?
Yes.
I want to reach out to one of them that I thought was hilarious. Bruce Campbell would have made a great Batman. I want to see that movie.
There's a parallel universe somewhere where that happened.
Yep.
For the record, I'm with you, Dorian, that I think it does benefit his character. But I will also say the second time he leaves them, when he gets to the cabin, and then, what's the cop's name? Amanda finds him right at the start of the next episode. That happened too quickly. I have no qualms with him saying, no, I got to do this alone. But it gets resolved way too fast.
Yeah.
I want to keep with the new characters, and especially really the only part of the show that, I don't know, had any kind of an emotional twinge for me. And I'll keep with you, Alexis, and then back to Dorian again. And if Robert has something to say this time, fantastic. The new characters are interesting. We can talk at length about them, but more specifically, sort of Pedro's journey and, you know, Pablo. Thank you. Jose.
I felt it. Robert made the face.
Yeah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Pablo. So I like Pablo as a character. He's got enough earnest and eagerness that makes him charming. He's got some dorky qualities, but he's not so dorky that I want to see him get killed, you know, or you know, I was sort of cheering when something bad happens to him. Like he's kind of just pitch perfect. And then you think he's going to be kind of like a court jester-y, you know, comedy character, but he has this really great mini arc with the uncle who ends up dying at the end of that sequence before they move on to the middle part of the series. And it's the only death in the show that I was truly like, oh, that makes me sad. What did you think of the Pablo character, the stuff with the uncle, any of that stuff that you want to respond to, Alexis?
I'm with you, and I'm glad, because I was worried at first that, because he is, in the first few episodes, does seem to be more of the comedic one, especially when you have Kelly, the girl, who's awesome and fairly badass, and you start to get worried that it's going to be the case of, oh, he's the flailing comedic sidekick and she's the badass Mary Sue.
I credit where credit's due. The bit where she's possessed is the best stuff she does in the entire series.
Absolutely.
Her physical acting and all of that, and like it's a stellar performance. And unfortunately, they don't give her as much to do later on. Maybe at the very end where she's dealing with the blonde, the camper. But other than that,
Samara
future
Weaving, actually.
Yeah, future Scream Queen.
Okay. It's the best stuff she does in the entire series, season so far.
I would say that's a fair assessment, but they do really bring out the best of each other. All these characters have really great chemistry. I love the scenes, Pablo and Kelly, and how they're just trying to figure out, like, I think it takes a few episodes.
That conversation they have on the couch where it was after she's been possessed and he's like having to reconcile.
You tried to have sex with me and then you tried to kill me. Yeah.
Right, and it's just like, I clearly have feelings for you, but you don't for me. But you played on those feelings when you were this monster, and I don't know how to deal with that. I'm like, that's probably the smartest stuff of this entire season. That,
Absolutely.
Think about the implications there of somewhere inside of you is this part of you that knows you can manipulate me because of how I feel for you. That's shitty, and I don't want to hate you, but I kind of do. Like, bravo for that level of writing.
I also like that the show doesn't immediately turn them around after they deal with their trauma. There's a really bad trope, I would say, with characters where it's like, okay, I have just gone through, a literal hell-raising experience. Next episode, okay, I'm tougher and I'm better. It's like, no, it takes a while to get through that, and you see these characters dealing with that. You see. I absolutely love the scene in the second episode where they bury Kelly's parents, and she's still processing, and she looks at Ash, who's placed crosses over the graves, and she's like, they were Jewish, and he's just like,
told me that before I made those dumb crosses.
Hey, I've had to tie crosses together for props. Those things are hard to get to hold still. So, but again, they have really great chemistry. I love the scenes of them just talking back and forth. I love the scene where she's like, I want a flamethrower. And Pablo's like, you were just so quick to say that. What kind of weapon am I? Or, it's like, am I a flamethrower kind of guy? Am I a gun kind of guy? And it's funny. And it's also kind of relatable. I mean, these two have just completely lost any sense of what's going on in reality. So they're just trying to figure out what's going on. They're just talking about what they know. They're just shooting the shit.
Right,
I love that.
Your thoughts on Pablo, Kelly, and the uncle's death, Dorian?
That
was a simple one.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Alexis and not go too deep into Kelly, because she kind of really nailed it. Kelly's whole arc is very much just, okay, this happened. I'm pissed. I want revenge.
Right.
I'm done. Perfectly done. Pablo is very much my spirit animal in this show. He is my favorite because he is
that tracks a little too well for me and you there, Dorian. That I don't know how I feel about it.
You can't outrun evil, Ash.
Wait, does that mean that Robert's spirit animal is Kelly?
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely.
No.
He's Lucy Lawless. Come on, let's
my spirit animal for this show does not appear in season 1.
We'll get to it in season 2. So stand by on the Radulich.
I think just to make it weird, his spirit animal should be Amanda.
Any hoodle. But no, Pablo is my spirit animal because he's the boy who was raised on all of these great stories of valiant knights fighting dark demons and dragons. And he believes in it so hard. And then what's in front of him, he's like, fuck. The stories told us how it worked out. They never told us how it got there, which again, I'll piggyback off of what Alexis said. It's like, wait, okay, you said that so quickly. What kind of a gun? Am I a gun guy? Do I do the chainsaw? You're doing the chainsaw. Is that too much? And he doesn't go full. And considering when the original movies came out, I think this works, even though a lot of the audience that is my age is going to go, who? He doesn't go Rob Schneider annoying, with the sidekick. He is hopeful. The wide eyes, are not just a look. I can do wide eyes and look. He does it in such a way that you believe that he's with El Jefe, which is what he calls Ash, and he believes in this legend. But God damn it, he is so not prepared for this, and I love that in a character because it all, without doing it, they set up a way that we could have handed off the torch from Ash to Pablo and be like, you know what, this time, like if Ash were to die heroically, Pablo could be okay, this time it's different. I know it won't be, but I'm going to say it is because that's what they say in all the stories I heard when I was a kid. But to answer your final question very quickly, the uncle's death, I had to stop. Like I didn't
Really?
I didn't stop the TV show like completely, but I like after his death, I had to take a moment. That one made me cry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, any of the people who are my friends on this that are watching this show know that I'm a weeper, whether it's a sad moment or an epic moment. Like, just to give
Real
you
quick, have you ever seen The Wire?
No, not yet. I haven't had the chance.
Okay. If you really want to cry and contemplate whether or not you want to live on this planet anymore, watch all 5 seasons of The Wire, then finish it with The Corner, then write me a letter saying how much you hate me, then cry.
As you see, this paper will be slightly wet when you receive it a fortnight from now.
Yeah, the one
But I put
punch
tears
of season.
on an email.
By the time you read this, I will be gone, having plummeted off the Winter River Bridge.
Yeah, the 1-2 punch of season 5 of The Wire with The Corner is enough to send anybody into the woods to live deliberately, and it has broken many a woman and some men I know.
And that's fair.
Counterpoint: some of us don't care enough about the urban blight to be moved by those.
Then there's Robert.
And then
I have enough existential crises going on at any given point in time. Those don't bother me.
Yeah, but I know what does, and we well-worn territory as well on these networks. So keep going there.
But having had a not only a fantastic grandfather and who has passed away, not in such a way that was in the show, but a sensei who's still alive, who is a very, both men are very similar. That hit me because I was reminded of both of them, and the actor. I'm sorry, the notes. I don't have his name in my notes here, but
just call him the wrong name. I do.
Hang on, I'm on it.
I'll keep going though. So we don't have dead air. The actor who played it did fantastic, and he and Pablo's scene as he's dying, is just, it's heartbreaking, and it's one of those things that there's visuals from a show, no matter how many seasons it is, that will stick with you forever. And his passing was one of those moments for me, and it was great writing, great directing, great cinematography. It is a sad scene. If you have a soul, you're going to cry.
For me, it's the height of the show, and I'm going to talk about why in just a second as I pitch to Robert. But really, this to me was the high point of the show. It kind of goes downhill from here, and I don't care if that's a minority opinion. It's my opinion. We can debate that if you want.
Actor's name is Hemke Madera.
Cool. All right, I want to talk about Amanda. Robert, feel free to throw in, because in case you were like, but I had something to say this time. So take your time to do that when I pitch to you. But if not, let's also talk about Amanda. I struggle with this character because, and maybe again I missed a detail here, but a lot of her time on screen is Ash is murdering people, and he's turning people into evil dead, and he must be stopped. And finally, Chris Bailey, she sees for herself what is actually going on, and he charms her as an old overweight middle-aged man with one hand with a chainsaw is wont to do, and and then she follows him, and of course she meets her demise. And there's two things I'm going to say here. We don't have to address the second one right this second, but we can definitely come back to it before the end of the show. But to me, this feels like a really fun idea that they didn't have enough story for, because the second half of this drags and kind of feels like they repeat a lot of the same beats over and over and over again. As far as her, and I'm focusing on her specifically because not once do I believe her arc. Like, she's doing stuff, and she's busy businesswoman who don't need no man, but also a cop. And then it takes as much as it does to get her to see he's not the murderer. And then there's a little bit of, flirting with him and some, pinch and squeal. And then she's a zombie. So I don't love the character. I don't love the writing on that. And as I said, post the stuff with the uncle, I struggled with this show. So your thoughts on Amanda, Robert, or anything you want to pick at of what I've said, feel free.
No, I don't have a whole lot for her. Her death was a little bit surprising to me when I first watched this.
Mm-hmm.
On rewatch, it's much clearer that she needs to go. She's not really contributing much of anything.
Oh, good. We're on the same side.
The idea of, the law enforcement character kind of chasing down Ash is not a bad one.
It had to be written better than this.
Well, part of their vehicle for it winds up being Lucy Lawless, and Ruby's just a much more interesting character, so we go with that from here on.
Who they do away with 5 minutes later, and then you see her at the end of the show.
Right.
Again, sort of. For whatever it's worth, the show gets more like directionally streamlined in seasons 2 and 3.
Okay.
This one, there's a little bit of again working out the kinks in some of those areas.
Let's just have a little damn you Hollywood, me and you, for a second, my love.
Right.
This seems a little bit like, again, like they had a really, really fun idea, but they didn't quite know how to execute it. But Starz was like, give us a show, and they're tripping over themselves trying to get this thing done. So I'm not surprised after they got this first one done and they looked back and they go, well, we've made a mess. What can we do differently to clean this up and make it better? And then it does get better. That's why I'm not writing off the show and saying we're not doing 2 and 3. Like, I'm anxious to see if the show get better. But this one definitely feels like when you're way excited about something, but you don't have an adult there to point you in the right direction, so you just make a mess in the kitchen.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of that.
Okay. Go ahead. I know you're wanting to jump in here, Alexis, and you've been very good about waiting for me to call on you. So your thoughts on all things said so far?
As far as Amanda, I will agree. I thought that, okay, I have no problems with the cop who's kind of trying to figure out what's going on because, yeah, anyone with a brain would see all of these chopped up bodies and assume we are dealing with the sickest of all serial killers. So we get that. She and Bruce Campbell do have some good chemistry. I enjoy the episode where they come across.
That is the best part of any of their interactions is they actually have good sexual chemistry. It's a little weird, but May December is it is what it is.
No, I like saying they come across that alt-right militia. They get handcuffed together and are thrown down into I have no idea what the hell the potato shed thing.
It's just a bunker.
Whatever it is. And the way they talk to each other, and it's just like, so you ready to dance? Oh, I'm ready for a lot more than that. It's like, it's cute. It works well. But yeah, I don't understand why they killed her off. They could have made it work if I think they kept her around into season 2. Maybe Ash makes the deal for her to come with them to Jacksonville, Florida. By the way, I would love to hear you say what the hell is in Jacksonville if you have ever been there. Have you ever been there?
I have been to Jacksonville. It looks like Albany. It's just a lot of concrete and why does anyone live here?
Well, hang on. In fairness, if Albany had Jacksonville's weather, it wouldn't suck out loud.
That's fair.
Fair enough. So, but yeah, I kind of wish they hadn't killed her off.
Mm-hmm.
I think
that
she
much
could
build up. Like they built her and built her and built her, and then they killed her off. It's like, why? Well, this seems like wasted motion.
Yeah.
Well,
I would. Again,
there's
I
a
would
little
have liked
bit
to
of
think it around.
Go ahead.
Part of what they're doing there is Ash can never be happy.
Like Batman, bring it back.
Well,
to
no, that
like
is
Samurai Jack.
That is the Evil Dead franchise. Raimi has openly said it's like that is the core part of the franchise. Ash has to suffer. That's why no matter what happens, he gets the worst of the physical attacks.
Okay, so I got a bit of a segue, bit of a parallel. I just want to kick this ball around. Feel free to jump in, Dorian. I love Batman. He's one of my favorite superhero characters of all time. When he married, they did the marriage, the wedding to Catwoman. God, I can't remember the author's name, but I was
Tom
cursing
King.
him. Thank you, Tom King. I was cursing Tom King, who's the Vision series is phenomenal and one of my favorite comics. He's not a bad writer, but it was something he said about Batman that actually pissed me off.
It wasn't just you. That man got so much hate mail.
I'm well aware. So he goes to marry Catwoman, and of course, it's all a plot. And it doesn't happen. And when interviewed about it, Tom King said, "Yeah, Batman can never be happy." And I flipped every table in my house, and it's like I was so mad. And here's the thing, and feel free to agree or disagree with this. Just bat this around for a moment. Ash, Batman, a character who is perpetually miserable, that life is always an uphill struggle. They can never have any wins. Gets boring after a while.
Or becomes the villain.
It's like watching,
Thank you, Harvey Dent.
a sports team that never has any wins. Eventually, you just lose interest.
Well, the reason I say becomes the villain is
Mhm.
because, and I'll use Harry Potter as an example,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to get into the full lore of Harry Potter, but there was a moment in the
Please
middle
don't.
of the book. Well, no, I
my
didn't want to scare you. I'm like, I'm going to bring up Harry Potter. Oh, for fuck's
He's gonna
sake.
bring out charts and diagrams. I'm like, motherfucker, here we go.
Pull the eject cord, pull it. But no, there's a part in the books where the author gave a character a reprieve to kill someone else off, and that was that Arthur Weasley would get to live, but Sirius Black, who is Harry Potter's godfather, would get, very shockingly murdered in this in the series. Now, Sirius Black was not only my favorite, but there's a whole long story behind that. The issue I have with it, but that connects to this, is that if they'd given Ron a loss, Ron now comes to the same level as Harry and goes, shit, I'd never lost family before, man. Like maybe grandmas and grandpas because old age, but fuck, this is what you go through every day. The issue with compounding everything on Harry and him still staying stalwart and true and like you can never be happy. It's like there's a point where realism, even again in a story about wizards or in this case Deadites and a guy who has a chainsaw for a hand, we go, no, I'm sorry, I can't back you up anymore.
I have to complete the fantasy triumvirate. Batman, Harry Potter, and Michael Douglas from Falling Down. At some point, you're just in a tank blowing up a McDonald's because they wouldn't serve you breakfast at 11:01.
Which again, Michael Douglas and it's exactly. It's like and that's the issue. Ash never being able to be happy. And that one of the reasons I think it works with Ash is because Ash pops. I mean, Bruce Campbell's retired the character. I'm sure they'll reboot it at some point. I'm sure they're already planning to.
In theory, there's an animated Ash vs. Evil Dead continuation, half in the works, where he'd voice the character. But
that would be interesting. I'd still watch it. But again, sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off there, Robert. I wanted to finish my thoughts, so I wasn't dragging on. Was that Ash shows up so few times? It's like Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. There's a whole bunch of time. Then there's this show. Okay, there's enough time in or space that we're like, it's like seeing an old friend. Oh, how's things going? Well, this person died. Oh, that's right. I remember why I don't hang out with you that much. You're kind of fucking depressing. And Batman's the same way. Like Harry Potter, they try to go like, see, even someone who has lost all of this can remain stalwart and true and upright. You suck. But coming back to the other question, the character of Amanda.
Hang on, I gotta interject here. Have you guys ever seen? Robert knows what I'm talking about. This Nuts' video they put on YouTube. Wrestling isn't wrestling. What was the writer's name? Robert.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, shout it at me when you remember it, or look it up.
That's not real wrestling.
Landis.
Yeah. Okay.
Max Landis.
So Max Landis does this like 20 to 30 minute YouTube video where he explains the appeal of wrestling through the history of one character. That character is Triple H, and all the wrestlers are played by hot chicks. It's amazing. When he gets to John Cena, first of all, the girl playing his version of John Cena needs an Emmy or something because he's fucking great. But his whole thing with John Cena was, and then comes along John Cena, and he never loses, and he never cares about anything, and he's just going through life, and the whole time he's shrugging and smiling. And his point and the whole reason I'm bringing that up is, after a while, that just gets boring. We watch stories because we want to see either the heroes and the villains emote through human struggle. Because it's go ahead, Robert. You're like,
this is. Hang on, just to answer your question, though, I think this is one of the other reasons Ash works, because they give him enough wins along the way, where it's so weird because he is he is both the thing that all the Deadites desperately want to get rid of, but there's he's half a degree away from being the Doom guy, where he is what the demons fear. Because they can't get him. It doesn't matter what they try to do. We send legions of evil spirits after this one guy, and it doesn't matter. he's always still standing.
Right.
And I wish they'd thrown that into the TV show. I mean, you would have had to do it at the end of season 3 when they already knew they were canceled. But like somebody, whether it's Ruby or some other demon being like, you will never be happy, Ashley Williams, but like getting really close to his ear and whispering, but you can never lose.
I feel like somebody in the writer's room is saying what we're saying and keeps getting shot down going, but the tone matters. And if you lean too much into the tragedy of Ash's being, he can never win, you're going to lose the more comedic tone of the show. And the appeal, as you said an hour ago, is people aren't really looking at this for David Simon-esque drama.
Please reference a better television director. I beg of you.
Well,
Mike Flanagan.
Shut up, all of you.
Show canceled.
And we're back to doing The Offer. Now I like you're gonna there's people like me who are looking at that sort of thing, but I can find it elsewhere. The show doesn't have to be that, and I openly acknowledge it. All right, so we're kind of all over the place here. This conversation sort of dovetailed out of Bruce Campbell never being able to be happy, and that came out of our discussion with Amanda. Anyone else have anything with Amanda before we go forward?
Just real quick, and
Yes.
it's very, very short. It's basically, I'm going to bounce off what Robert and Alexis said. I have no problem with a Javert style, Javert from Les Mis style cop who's, is very single-minded. My partner died. It's your fault. You're the worst serial killer ever. And I hate to reference this movie because I know, again, Alexis is I can feel her eyes already rolling. There's a line from that old live action Inspector Gadget they did where Inspector Gadget bashes through the back of a window and he's got his hat is going, "You're under arrest." And the guy playing Dr. Claw looks at him and goes, "God, you're irritating." And
I love and I think a lot of people said, wasn't that just him summing up the movie in general?
For the record, Hank Azaria's line delivery of that is, I want to say it was Hank Azaria that was Dr. Claw in that, because I remember it was Matthew Broderick as Inspector Gadget.
Rupert Everett was Dr. Claw.
That's it. Thank you.
But no worries. But the whole point of using that line was that's Amanda's character arc for me, up until the point where she starts having, like right before her death, I'm like, okay, fun character. Okay, and my brain's going, We've done the Javert thing, but it's like Javert flipped on its head, where Javert realizes that Valjean's an actually good person, and they're gonna fight side by, and you're dead.
All right. So I've been talking for a while, leading the discussion. Alexis, what are some of the points that you wanted to bring up? You desperately wanted to be here. So before we close out for the night, what are some of the things you're passionate about the show that you want to talk about?
Well, apparently in 2022, Campbell announced that the show was so popular, despite it getting canceled, that they're looking at doing an animated revival.
Anyone else want to tell her we talked about that 2 minutes ago?
I was actually just swallowing my beer and going, yeah, Robert brought that up like not 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
I don't mind you having ADHD, not being able to focus on the conversation, but when you repeat something that we said in the podcast 2 minutes ago, you can now wait.
I'm listening to you, Robert. You have my ears. I hear you.
So anyway, Robert.
No, but seriously, what do you guys think? I mean, would Ash work in an animated format? I mean, I'm sorry, I was thinking about, because I was just trying to imagine the idea of an animated version of this, and I don't know if it would actually work or not.
Well, before I bring my thoughts up on it, Robert, you brought it up. You take the center seat for a second.
I don't know. There's a lot about the action of what Evil Dead represents that would be better animated, maybe.
Like what?
You don't have to have 80 cuts to try and hide the fallacy of your physical effects.
I thought one of
really?
I thought stop. I thought one of the things that the appeal of a Sam Raimi project, especially the Evil Dead stuff, is the amount of buckets of blood you're throwing at the camera, which will not look good animated.
Yeah, that's what I was. I'm sorry. That's why forgive me. That's what I got lost in my thoughts, because I was reading about that earlier, and I was trying to think about it, and I was like, wait, I don't want to see animated buckets of blood. I want to see. I mean, yeah, it's CGI enhanced on the show, no question.
Again, I'll throw this out there. Imagine this. Imagine that final shot of the chick from Evil Dead Rise, where she's caked in blood in front of the tree mulcher thing, but animated. It doesn't look nearly as good. Robert, you were speaking. Nope, Robert.
It might, but well, again, part of what you're able to achieve with animation in this case would be, if I have another gripe about this show, the constant editing that you have to do for lower budget practical effects that they have here, it gets a little jarring. So there's a few things you could smooth out in terms of presentation. I don't know. It might not work, but depending on the studio involved, you also might get some pretty cool stuff out of it. So I would characterize myself as like cautiously not pessimistic.
Well, I thought the special effects and the gore and everything were pretty good for this, for a Starz TV show especially.
There's some of the CGI that doesn't quite hold up on this my time going through it this time around. There's a lot of the practical stuff that is pretty solid, but it's a lot of editing where we're trying to cut around what we're doing because we don't have the full budget or the time to make this look really like smoothed out and cinematic.
So was the originals.
I'm aware this is all part of the aesthetic. But if I have another complaint,
I don't know why I leaned into that to be like the voice of God, be like, Robert, so are the originals.
I mean, there are a couple of shots, yeah, where I think the one we can all think of is I think it's the penultimate episode when we see the hand crawling behind the wall and someone had the bright idea to CGI in a bunch of maggots, and it looks really bad.
Yeah, that wasn't great. Ruby's entrance, like front flipping through the trees, is really rough.
You can see that stunt double's beard.
There's some stuff in here that's just really rough around the edges, and I'm not saying it's not enough to be like, oh, this is terrible, but it does need to be acknowledged that it exists.
Still Xena Warrior Princess.
Hey, she looks amazing. Okay, first time I watched the show,
she didn't look amazing. I just every time I see that flip scene, I just hear her like screaming in her head, "I am still Xena Warrior Princess."
Hey, Robert. So, we've been waiting for a year and a day, longer, 10 years and a day, to talk about this show. This was the opportunity. What we miss? Anything else you want to discuss before we start to close out?
Trying to think here. A lot of this is like, again, it's whether or not the comedy is going to land for you, and this is a very rapid fire kind of comedic show.
Okay, does the comedy land for you?
Some of it, but that's one of the benefits of rapid fire comedy is if something doesn't land, there's usually something not too far behind it that hopefully will.
I got to call this out. It's funny. Again, kind of referencing our long time together on Damn You Hollywood. We don't typically review comedies. I think the last one might have been Pixel.
Well, we don't do live action comedies because a bunch of the animated stuff we wind up doing, but
sure.
We did Pixel and we were both like, boy, this is terrible.
Well, I was kinder to it than you are, and that is exactly my point. Not only do you and I have some similar taste in movies, but a lot of what appeals to us, a lot of what appeals to me doesn't appeal to you, and vice versa. That's why we have such interesting conversations, at least one of the reasons. So the comedy in this was like, because I'm me, and I get to use that phrase now, because I'm me, I know why this appeals to other people. I understand other people. It's what I do for a living. But it's really not my cup of tea. It's not my kind of comedy. But it was for you, theoretically. So what about the comedy works for you, Robert Esquire Winfree?
I didn't be perfectly candid. This did not. I told you. I remembered enough about this that I could have just done the show without rewatching it.
Mm-hmm.
But because they're only 30-minute episodes, it was an easy rewatch over the last 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this did not land for me this time around the way it did.
What's
initially.
The difference between then and now for you?
I'm 8 years older.
Okay. So we're saying the humor in this is somewhat more juvenile than you recall?
My sense of humor is not what it was. Whether or not this stuff is necessarily all that juvenile, it's not hitting for me the same way that it kind of did. I was largely amused before, and now I'm not quite bemused, but it's getting there. It just doesn't quite land the same way I remembered it. But if there's other stuff I wanted to mention, closing, there's a few things about this season that I think actually are pretty solid. It closes fairly strongly. The setup to get there, I mean, the entire episode with the militia is filler. It doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I got annoyed towards the end of this.
They really had enough material for 6 episodes, 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And it got stretched to 10. And so there's some of this is a little bit uneven. But again, a few things. So actually I need to give a shout out. Elagos, the demon that they deal with in episodes 2 and 3, is actually a well-designed creature. I like what they're able to get, the mileage they're able to get out of that one.
Mm-hmm.
It is impressive. It's obviously CGI used for the effects of him shaking and the mouth kind of vibrating, but it was a practical costume and makeup.
Yeah. I think the fact that the season ends on some more some more earnest horror is really to its benefit. The sequence where poor Pablo has the face of the Necronomicon on him like a Rey Mysterio mask.
Okay, Mr. Wrestling 2.
And he is being forced to vomit out the demon spawn of Ruby, and we come to find Ball. But there's some genuine kind of disturbing stuff going on there, and the show leaning back into that at the end was a good call.
Yeah. And very quickly, I just on that scene, just because I know you're going to go in a different direction, Robert, so I want to say this really quick. I felt that scene was emotional and emotionally well done because we cared about Pablo so much. We're like, oh, buddy, we don't want you to die. I mean, you probably will, but I
also give credit to the scene with Samara Weaving, Heather, that's the character's name. The scene of her being locked in the cabin, unable to get out. You have the nails flying, coming out. There is something really classic horror about it. I mean, obviously
that's
we know
stronger if she lives through it, though. It's just I lived through this. I want to flash forward, and it's just and nails were coming at me, and now I can't go into a Home Depot, like something like that. But basically, they just kind of hostiled her to death.
She shows up in season 2, starts walking into Ed-Smart and sees the hardware section, just turns and runs out.
Sees the thing of nails and a hammer and just I can't, I'm out of here.
That's her 30-second cameo. Thanks for being here.
Mark, here's the question then.
Mm-hmm.
If they could have saved one character, do you think they should have saved the cop or Heather for season 2? Who do you think they should have saved to add to the what did Pablo call them? The ghost beaters?
I would have killed the cop differently and saved Samara Weaving. The cop I would have killed like Lois Lane in Injustice. I would have had her. I would have had somebody, since we're doing so much with psychology and hallucination, I would have had somebody hallucinating that she was. Is it these that are Deadites?
Deadites, yeah.
Okay, because I didn't want to say it before and get yelled at that's an Hellraiser thing. What are they in Hellraiser?
Cenobites.
Right, Cinnabons and Deadites. Got it. So
Cinnabons are just as deadly.
Just wait till he gets to the Hellraiser movie with the. I was say, just wait till you get to the Hellraiser movie with the Deaders.
No, thank you.
That's the thing. Sean and I talked about it. Long Road to Ruin for the Hellraiser franchise.
2 parts. Anyway, so instead of actually turning her into a Deadite, had they fucked with Bruce Campbell or somebody else, they fucked with Bruce Campbell and
Kelly.
And he thinks she's a Deadite, and he kills her with the chainsaw, and then it wears off, or whatever, and he realizes what he's done. Again, I'm projecting a much more serious and tragic tone on this than I think anybody working on it or watching it actually wants. But you asked me what I think would make it a stronger narrative, and that would have.
I'm going to agree with you. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm going to agree with you, Mark. The only thing I would change is instead of putting that on Ash's shoulders because of Kelly's storyline arc after losing her parents and being possessed, put it on her and let her have a moment with Ash where he's like, I know how you feel. You can have the whole, you don't know how I feel. Oh, yeah, I do.
Always have that tension between them. Have it with, because again, they're sort of playing around with this again, they're sort of playful flirting with each other, but it never goes beyond that. Maybe stop doing the same beats over and over or wasting time with the militia and actually build a relationship with this cop and Ash over an episode or two, and then take her, and then if you're gonna have to do like the Batman always has to be tragic thing, then take her away from him. Now you have that tension between Kelly and Bruce Campbell as opposed to this kind of goof troop that they've formed. Like, that's the thing. It's like what the show is sorely lacking is strong tendons to bind these relationships together. But an hour and a half ago, we cut off Robert. So finish up there, Robert.
I think the last thing that I wanted to bring up is this is one of the few seasons of television where you end it with the hero basically throwing up his hands and going, "I'm out."
Yeah, it's one of the
I
few things I
quit.
like.
No, it's a really great choice because the Deadites can't deal with Ash. I mean, the Necronomicon actually tells him at one point, "I'm what makes you special. Without me, you're just a stock boy." And Ash just kind of doesn't he doesn't want any of this. He never wanted any of this. It's just the only thing he's good at. And to be given the opportunity at the end, she goes, "Look, I'm not going to turn the world into a hellscape." And Ruby says, "I'm not going to turn it into a hellscape. It's just evil's too messed up. There's too much chaotic evil. We need more lawful evil, and I will handle that. I'll make sure, and you take yourself off the board, right? You take your chess piece off the board. I'll make sure you don't get bothered. You go live your life. I'll do what I'm going to do." And the fact that Ash is just when they're driving away, like you can see Pablo and Kelly are like, "We're not cool with this, man. Not necessarily. The world's going to go to hell." And Ash just kind of looks around and goes,
"Here's the thing. In theory, it's not an unreasonable offer.
No, it's not. And that's why it works.
I'm here to manage evil because it needs to be managed. You've seen what it looks like unmanaged. Do you prefer this? Or
I think it's also important to point out that I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry.
Or how about I'll be Lord Sauron. These will be the orcs, and we'll have order and a Mordor, and you can go off to the Shire and be a hobbit. Dorian and then Alexis, go.
I was just going to make something Robert said just very quickly. Someone named Lawless saying we need lawful order. But
hang on, you dumb.
So, Loki.
Go ahead, Alexis.
The whole thing, apparently.
That was so bad.
I was just going to say, I think it's also important that he doesn't take the offer on the first deal. Mm-hmm. He gets that hallucination, and Ruby's offers him to go to Jacksonville, take himself off, and he originally says no. He says yes when he realizes he can't save Kelly or Pablo.
Yeah.
They're killing each other, and it's just like, okay, fine. Now I'll take your deal. And I think there's also a little bit that Ash, I don't think he's really able to admit to those two when they're driving away, because he's like, yeah, it's all right. It's like, I don't think he can really like corner them. It's like, I did this to save you. All right. I don't think he feels like he can do that. Although I do love that he's like, fine, just like get us both down there. Oh, and $10,000 is like, don't push your luck.
I'm not a bank.
What frustrated me about that ending, and then I'm going to throw it to Dorian for his final thoughts. What frustrated me about the ending was she's making a reasonable request, and our hero is struggling with it. And it's not like he touched the Palantir and saw the Shire on fire. She was just like, I just want to manage things. Like, that's it. That's all I want to do here.
Well, there's an open question about whether or not you can trust a demon like that, to be honest. And turns out you can't because there's more of this show, but...
Sure. At the time, though, as an audience member and only dealing with the show at that time, I'm kind of on Lucy Lawless' side and frustrated that our hero can't get his act together fast enough to accept a perfectly reasonable deal. But if you got nothing else, Robert, then Dorian, take me home, baby doll, with your final thoughts. Or
I got just one more, and it's purely personal.
Hang on. I love how the tenor of the show has been. Robert, the floor is yours. Say something. No. All right. Well, I'm going to move on then. I have something I have to share with you.
Well, in fairness, the times you've said, "Hey, talk about this," I haven't had anything to say about what.
I know. I'm not saying you're doing it on purpose. I just can't believe the luck.
I was going to say, Dorian's chomping at the bit. Robert keeps waiting until later to say something, and I'm not paying attention, apparently.
Okay, it's a good podcast, guys. I'm glad I'm here tonight.
But no, just the last thing, and this is again, it's a purely personal one, but this show wound up giving us a clip that has a. I'm going to ask you, Mark, to refrain from being weird about this. Thank you.
I'm intrigued now.
But the scene where Lucy Lawless sits up out of the fire after she gets thrown into there by the demon.
The Daenerys scene.
Yeah, that scene has a kind of special place in my heart because my former boss used to post that every time he would have to wake up at 2:30 in the morning to cover a Japanese professional wrestling card.
That's funny, actually.
I mean, I don't know if you remember that, Mark, but yeah, every time Larry was up for New Japan, he'd post that with "I live" to indicate he was up and ready to start covering whatever obscure thing he was going to cover.
Yeah, I don't remember.
That was always on my timeline.
Yeah, I don't remember catching a lot of Larry's late night coverage. That I didn't see, but whenever Triple H would bury somebody and it was the picture of grapes and shit, that always cracked me up. I miss Larry.
No, I would see that one, especially because there was a time when the UFC would run events overseas and they'd be occasionally at.
Oh, dark.
Well, I would be there were a few times, not every time, but on occasion, I'd be like 2.5 hours into a UFC event, which are like 6 hours from start to finish. And then I'd see Larry's GIF come across my timeline. You're like, oh, New Japan's about to start. And then I'd have to post under I'd have to reply to him with, I've been here for a few hours already, man. And by the way, you're probably going to get done before I am too. So.
Okay, you good?
Yep, I'm good.
Dorian, take me home, baby doll, mercifully.
Okay. Been a lot of stuff said, and I'm going to hit on it.
Are you now, big guy?
What?
Sorry, keep going.
Come back as a deadite. That was the plan all along. No, there's a lot of things brought up, and I'm trying to hit on all of them as quickly as I can. Maybe this just because when this came out, how old I was, I obviously really enjoyed it. For me, this was like seeing a band that your parents talked about, or your older brothers and sisters talked about that you never got to see.
This is my kid. This is me bringing my kids to go see Tears for Fears last year.
Terrible choice.
Which they all look
like. Hey now,
Winfree,
we will fight. I don't know where you live. Well, wait, he said you live in Utah. Okay, I can scour Utah.
Utah's a big state, you know.
Anyways, no, it felt like
anytime you want to spar, come down, sign a waiver. I got gloves for you.
Oh, fair enough.
You have waivers?
If you go to a gym to spar, you sign a waiver.
What you stopped him with? Bad, Alexis.
This really felt like, again, that band that was awesome that you got to hear like on CD and, but you never got to witness it actually happen. And, even with just Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi and the Raimi brothers getting together for the writing and stuff like that. And it felt like being able to witness this for the first time, like they had, like for some people it was Led Zeppelin or Aerosmith or, Tears for Fears or whatever.
Yeah.
And so to me, the comedy,
just keep going.
No, I'm laughing at what I'm about to say.
Okay.
The comedy to me landed. It was fun. I go back to this show every now and again. It's not something that I watch religiously. Like every year we watch Ash versus the Evil Dead from episode 1 to the final episode, and we don't take any breaks. But no, this is I think, because even though Bruce Campbell did the voice for Ash Williams in the video game, and there may be this animated one, which I'll talk on that here in just a second. This was kind of his swan song of being like, good night, everybody. This has been a fun run. I've loved playing this character. So I come back to my band metaphor. Everything he does voice-wise for this, I will show up to, because again, I'll end with what I started off with. I think he's one of the main, if only, final characters in horror that has such a full and human arc as a character. I'd love to see what they do in animation. And I know we talked about this, and then another question got brought up, and I didn't get to say what I thought about the animation idea. I think if you've given to the right animators, it can be fantastic. The blood, yes, is gonna lose something, but if they put more physicality into the characters and they're like heaving breath after being, hit by all this blood, I think we'll still have that comedic feel that Raimi gave us all those many years ago.
Actually, you know who needs to animate this?
Stop. If they use weird science to resurrect Rankin and Bass, then sure. I'm up for a Rankin and Bass animated Evil Dead cartoon.
Yes.
Hang on.
No. We get Ralph Bashki.
That's the second time this week I've gone Rankin and Bass and somebody else went Ralph Bashki. Rankin and Bass stuff is much more gross looking than Ralph Bashki.
Considering how
It's
much
what happens
of the
when
stuff
you talk. Sorry, Robert, you and I both started talking. I would say that's just what happens when you talk about Lord of the Rings so much, and then you bring up animation. Rankin and Bass and Bashki both did, so it's like, of course, they're going to start coming up together.
Robert.
My only thing is that considering how much of Rankin and Bass's work was subbed out to, why can I not remember that guy's name? Oh, that animation studio, the one that bankrupted itself, basically making Thief and the Cobbler.
Well,
Richard Williams' team, or
yeah, they did all the animation for Who Framed Roger Rabbit too.
That's Richard Williams' department.
Yeah.
I cannot remember the name of his studio, but yeah,
he's
the guy who made those.
But yeah, considering how much of what you remember about Rankin and Bass stuff being like weird looking and really super liquid and disturbing was the stuff they farmed out to that studio, and it's since long since gone the way of the dinosaur.
No, you know who needs to animate it? Tartakovsky.
I could see that.
Yeah, okay, I'll dance.
Yeah, Gandhi Tartakovsky. Go freaking watch Primal if you have any doubt.
For the record.
Yes,
Alexis, you've already had your close out. I'm trying to finish mine.
No, that was fair.
I know.
I need to get my Rankin and Bass joke out, and we needed to riff on that for a minute. But no, she's good.
I know.
I'll discipline her, Dorian. It's fine. I got this.
I know. She gives me crap so many.
He's got the paddle.
She gives me crap so many times when I see an opening. I'm like, I have to take the shot. I'm sorry.
There can't be too many daddies in the same podcast. Okay, this only works with one. Keep going.
Right. It's too kinky. But no, just to fully wrap up. I agree with most of the issues everybody here has had, but at the same time, I would say this is a show if you're a fan of Evil Dead, even if you just maybe got into it in the last 6 years because of the Evil Dead game, or again, your older brother, your parents introduced you to it. Give them at least the first season a watch. I believe all 3 seasons are worth it, and I think we're reviewing all 3 seasons.
We are, and I'm posting
show.
in case that was in case we missed it.
Hey, Alexis, just real quick. Mark's hosting that. I just wanted to let you know.
So wait, who's hosting that? So I can.
Yeah, it is.
In December, when I host Vinyl, is someone going to attack me for that too? Like, oh, Mick Wanamaker's here hosting Vinyl. Like, what the fuck? Why is there a coup going on?
Okay, you know what? Jesse was supposed to be here tonight. I will acquiesce and step back for season 2. Okay, Jesse can
just stop saying you're hosting things when you're not.
There was confusion. Okay, I'm sorry.
I gave you your own color. That's what also cracks me up about this.
What do you mean you gave me my own color?
Now, folks, we're into the behind the scenes commentary that's usually on the DVD of the podcast.
You're on the schedule.
Back when DVDs were a thing.
Right.
Instead of maybe you don't see it on your side of the schedule, but on my Google calendar, all the Radulich and Broadcasting stuff is red, and I changed red to purple for your stuff that you're hosting.
Okay, I not lying. When I access Google Calendar on both my phone and on my laptop, that does not show up.
Well, that would explain why you have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. Which is the phrase that pays here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. So I hope you've enjoyed our review of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Season 1.
Robert, you look pained tonight. Are you okay?
Sure.
Okay, sorry. When you asked that question, he paused, and I finally looked down to what his shirt was saying, and it was so perfect. It was like, "You seem pained. Is everything okay?" And it was like sarcastic comment.
Loading.
Got the.
That's a good shirt, by the way. That is a really good shirt. I give
so
you
perfect. Like, I wish I could have actually moved his camera down to focus on that while he paused.
Rob, are you all right, Robert? You don't feel like you're with us? Oh dear.
I feel like you just need that sign. It's like, from now on, someone asks you a question, you just hold up the sign if you're not wearing the shirt.
All right. So again, unless anyone has got any burning desires, I am moving this the fuck on. That is our review of Ash vs. Evil Dead. We will be back in a month to do season 2. It'll be, assume all three of you plus Jesse, unless one of you is busy or drops off or whatever the fuck. And we'll be doing that on Tuesday, October 15th. So that'll be Ash vs. Evil Dead season 2. This Thursday, there'll be a triple feature, theoretically with John Comer, also theoretically with Dorian Price, and we are doing Judy, starring Renee Zellweger, Chaplin, starring Robert Downey Jr., and Stan and Ollie, starring somebody Coogan and
John C. Reilly, Steve Coogan.
Okay, you can't pause in the middle of John C. Reilly because they're going, and Stan and Ollie starring John Cena. Although I would watch that movie.
Go watch wrestling. Wrestling is wrestling, and then get back to me. That's what I'm doing. Last week, we had a review of Beetlejuice. Dorian and I did a on trial for Prometheus so that he could try out being a host. And there was a Whiskey Rebellion that was supposed to be me and Ronnie Adams, but Ronnie went back to his home planet. So instead, I called because as Robert knows, when you're trying to start an army, form an army, you don't just look to your friends, you don't just look to your pals, you look to the clique, which brought out, of course, old school wrestling fans Pat Mullen and Gavin Napier, formerly of the Casual Heroes, and we had an impromptu Casual Heroes reunion, as I was reminded. Also, not the first time Gavin Napier has been on a Whiskey Rebellion. It was just in a different form back then. So we talked for almost 2 hours about wrestling in the 70s. Pat's still going, by the way. I just turned the camera off. But he's still in his apartment drinking whiskey, telling everybody about various territories they've never heard of. It's fantastic. Also, Lex Luger ain't no cowboy. Robert, what are you doing this week?
True. Well, I mean, Lex Luger is not a cowboy, and it was a really terrible idea to try and
but Lex Luger went up to that pay window, I'll tell you that much. He's on a bicycle!
He didn't go up as a cowboy. Like his trip to the pay window as the cowboy gave him like 2 bits.
This is true. Wrestling humor, everybody.
Yeah, ain't it grand? You can find me covering mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. This last Saturday was UFC 306. They were at the Sphere in Las Vegas, and they only had 10 fights on the card, but it still took 7 hours to go from start to finish.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
I really want to yell at the UFC about it, but it's not their fault that they had 8 decisions in 10 fights, and 2 of those were title fights.
Ugh.
Just took a while. So I have positive things to say. I have less than positive things to say. You can find the report in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com, including pics of one of the worst cuts the UFC's produced ever. That gnarly cut on Irene Aldana. And we were blessed with a few genuinely great fights over the course of that night, though. So I'll take it. Full breakdown, and if you don't want to read my report, could also be found on the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, which I host. We do a review of that. We talk about some news of the week, mostly a couple of fight announcements, one of which I do not care at all about, but we're still going through with the charade of John Jones and Stipe Miocic, so whatever. And then, let's see, this week, last week I wound up having to cover TNA's Victory Road on Friday instead of SmackDown because...
Oh my God, why? Who hates you?
First of all, it wasn't that bad.
Victory Road? Historically one of the worst and most boring and meaningless pay-per-views in all of TNA's history?
Okay, it's produced some of the most memeable moments. That's where Jeff Hardy came out so high Sting had to shoot pin him.
Yeah, if I remember, it was sort of like, like Hog Tie him down.
Pretty much.
That's so funny.
This one was, again, it was okay. It wasn't awful.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was they couldn't find someone to cover it.
Because
So-
no one would.
Oh, hang on. So Jeremy, one of the editors, came to me and said, look, I can cover SmackDown because I can cover SmackDown because it's only 2 hours and has commercial breaks, and I can still do the news aggregation and everything else that we do. I can't do that with a 3-hour pay-per-view that doesn't give me downtime. So can you cover TNA? And I went, sure.
And
Can't be that bad.
At which point, for the first time in his life, Robert considered doing an OnlyFans because it's got to be easier than this.
My OnlyFans would pay less than what I get paid for 411. So I'm. No, look, again, it was not the worst thing in the world. The human Labrador, Joe Hendry, got a win, so that's
Oh,
kind
that's
of
good.
funny.
Mm.
Nick Nemeth continues trying to be John Cena very, very hard. John Layfield showed up and did the most interesting thing with Eddie Edwards that Eddie Edwards has ever done. He got hit with a clothesline from hell.
Nice.
I don't like Eddie Edwards.
Yeah, no one
Couldn't
does.
tell.
He sucks. There's a reason he never went anywhere other than TNA.
Okay, wrap it up.
So you can find my coverage of that. This week will be WWE SmackDown. They're on the USA Network now with a new title graphic that I don't care for, and a new intro song that I really don't care for. So yay. But we're setting up for Bad Blood. Cody and Roman have agreed to team up to take on Solo Sikoa and the real star of this whole thing, Jacob Fatu. So that's a good time. Yeah, so we're seeing what SmackDown can pull out. They've been real up and down lately. Mostly because if Roman's there, things don't suck, and if Roman isn't there, it's kind of weak. So we'll just see how that plays out. But Friday night, I'll be covering that. There's no UFC event this Saturday, so I will be wasting it doing something else. Who knows?
Awesome. All right, Alexis. I hear you make jewelry, paint houses, all kinds of ill shit. Go.
Yeah, well, before I start talking about what shows I've got coming up, it might help if I actually look at the calendar for once, since apparently I need to get better at that. Looks like you don't have me for next week. Thank you for not forcing me to review Transformers 1. I really didn't feel like sitting through that shit.
You don't do anything. You elect to be on these.
All right.
That's what we call gaslighting, people.
Yeah, seriously. It never stops.
No, I meant you.
I don't ask her to do anything, you fucking asshole.
I hate it when mom and dad fight.
Oh my god. The most passive-aggressive podcast I've been on in at least a week.
Week after next, I will be on for Damn You Hollywood to discuss The Wild Robot. And
Maybe
it is...
if you keep this shit up.
I'm actually really intrigued by this because the first trailer dropped for The Wild Robot. I was like, oh, this looks amazing. Second trailer dropped. The animals started talking. I thought, oh, shit. But early reviews for this have been glowing.
Yeah, I'm gonna this weekend when I take the kids to go see Transformers 1, I'm gonna stop by the bookstore and get Jonas the novel and have him read it before we go see the movie.
Good idea.
Yeah, between Wild Robot and Flow, it looks like we're in for some really quality animated stuff this year.
That will be nice. After that, we got I'm hosting. Am I hosting this Long Road to Ruin on that Thursday? I want to make sure I actually don't say if I'm hosting it or not. If I'm not,
The X trilogy?
yes.
No, you asshole! You're not hosting it. It's my fucking show. Ah!
Your name's not on the calendar
Because
His
it's
name-
implied.
Hang on. Mark's name is almost never on a show if he's hosting it.
Alexis, I'm going to help you out here. Just in future, go, I'm on the show Long Road to Ruin. If you get there and you're hosting, then you know. If you get there and you're not hosting, you haven't lied to anyone.
So, welcome to the new host of the Metal Hammer of Doom Jukebox, the Long Road to Ruin, on trial. It's the Alexis Hayden
I didn't think you were on it because there's already 4 people on there, and I know how you feel about more than 4 people on the show.
No, between Ronnie ghosting me, Pat ghosting me, and a few others fucking last minute cancel me, and Dorian going, hey, I got these bitches. I just threw the rule book out the window and said, come one, come all, every show's a circus.
Fair enough. Okay,
I
yes.
no longer care about how many people are on. I mean, StreamYard can only do up to 6 people, but I no longer. Look, we're the Radulich bleeding edge at this point. I don't care how many people are on the show anymore.
Ugh, you're gonna give me PTSD if you do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's a low blow, Mark.
Yeah. All right. So yes, I will be on my first long road to Rue, and I'm pretty sure that's my first one. I don't think I've ever done one before.
No,
but we'll be discussing.
years and years ago, you were on Cinderella and you were on Harry Potter. Yes.
Were those long roads?
Just
That was
nod
before I
your head.
officially joined the network, so I didn't actually know what.
Alexis, you're an animation fan, so I'm going to say this in your language. Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
I love you. You're arguing with me about the shit that I was there for.
I wasn't arguing. I was just saying, oh, those were Long Road to Ruins? That was before I officially joined the network, so I didn't know that's what they were.
That was pretty much all we did back then.
Yeah, it was that and the Metal Hammer of Doom.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, doing that on the X trilogy, we're going to be
Pass me
discussing.
one of those, please? Thanks.
Other side. There you go.
Okay, there we go.
I did it right this time.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, we're going to be discussing X, Pearl, and Maxine. After that, I'll be on for the Damn You Hollywood Joker Folie à Deux. In the meantime, yes, the jewelry part of that introduction Mark gave me, Honeysuckle Rose Creations for fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. Before I talk Wild Robot, I will be in Des Moines, Iowa for Animate Des Moines. First time working that show. Looking forward to it. After that, we're going to be doing Planet Anime here in Kansas City. That's going to be so much fun. Really excited for that one. So we just uploaded a bunch of new stuff to our Etsy store. Working on getting everything onto the Handmade at Amazon store. I got to deal with all their stupid photo compliance bullshit before I can get the pictures up there. It's so annoying. But hopefully everything will be fully in stock by the end of the week. As always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm never calling it X, and TikTok. That's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
And now the host of Long Road to Ruin, On Trial, TV Party, Damn You Hollywood, Dorian Price. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. We got a really great show for you tonight. The worst Ed Sullivan impression ever.
Yes, it was. Sorry.
I am Dorian Price from @Frikey Pictures. If it needs to be photographed, if it needs to be filmed, if it needs to be edited, if it needs to be created, hit us up. We want to make your dream a reality. This week, as Mark pointed out, allegedly, as long as the show doesn't explode on Thursday, I will be. That's literally how we say
I just need to know who your understudy is. Who are you making sit through these movies? So if you're held hostage on a set, also which one is going to be dressing up as Stan and Ollie? Because that's what I really need to know.
We are legion, for we are many.
Perfect.
Anyway,
I'm just waiting. Actually, I need both. I need both Shay and Mick to both be understudies for this, so they can. So if you bail, they both come on as Stan and Ollie. It'll be perfect.
Yeah. There we go.
Mick and a little mustache. I need Shay kind of sprinkling salt on an egg and just looking into the. It'd be great. I could have made them both. I could have made them both Judy Garland, but fuck that shit.
Right. Miss Tate, Miss Wanamaker, you have not just been asked, you have been conscripted. Welcome to hell.
See, I want to see two Judys because that's going to lead to one hell of a cat fight.
Mr. Wasserman, Mr. Berg, Mr. Kettner, you're on deck. And more to come. But no, to focus though, I am also filming the show for a local band for those of you in the Kansas City metro area, Alexander the Great White Shark. It's going to be at the Reno, which is down by the Screenland Armor Theater. If you're aware of it, the show starts at 7 p.m. It is a fantastic artist. You do not want to miss this. On Friday, I will be filming the True Tones, which is one of the premier Beatle cover bands in the area. They will be, for this particular show, doing the album of Magical Mystery Tour and, of course, the award-winning Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So it's going to be a lot of fun to film and edit that. And actually mean that. That's not sarcasm. But yes, there's several other shows that are coming up. I'll be back for Ash versus the Evil Dead as well. I'm also on Joker Folie à Deux. And a whole bunch of other shows as well. For all the fans out there of mine and just friends of mine who watch this, If you're interested in being on the show, do reach out to me. There's always spots. And again, sometimes I can't make things. So as long as you don't suck, there you go. I bring you more.
That's great. Hey, look, I'll talk to anybody as long as I don't have to cancel a show I prepared for.
I'm just waiting for this to officially turn from Mark's cult into Dorian's cult.
He can have it.
It is your fucking flying circus now. I'm out.
There's gonna be a show one day where I'm gonna be so irritated, I just fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi right out of my clothes.
No.
And Obi-Wan Kenobi out of my clothing, as is tradition, is the phrase that pays here on the Rattleton Broadcasting Network. For Sleepy Robert, for Interrupted Alexis, for Pimpin' Dorian. I'm gotta go edit this stupid thing now. Be well, be safe, and behave.